Today's topic is visual pathway. Is the visual pathway. What is visual pathway? Visual pathway is how the light energy, is converted into electrical energy. How the light energy is converted into the electric energy in the brain. You understand? So light passes from the ocular structures and they are focused on the retina, and the retina creates an electric signal. Okay? Once it creates an electric signal, that goes to the different structures to the occipital cortex. Okay? Where it is interpreted as the vision or the image, whatever, for whatever contrast is available. So the anatomical structures responsible for converting this electrical signal, in this light signal into electrical signal, is the visual pathway. What are those structures? That starts from the retina. So retina, we have two types of cells. One is bipolar cells, other is the ganglion cells. That ganglion cells form what? They form the axons. Axons go through the optic nerve. Optic nerve relates into what? Optic chiasm partially. Then optic tract. Then retrogenic body. Then the optic radiation. Okay? Then optic radiation to the visual cortex. So my job today is to clear your doubts about these things, if you have any. If you are clear, that's very good. But by this lecture, you should improve your understanding of the visual pathway and the confusions you have any. So, what is if there is a problem in the optic nerve, or there is a problem in the chiasm, or there is a problem in the occipital cortex, or anything or that is in the body, it reflects what? It reflects clinically how? In the field of vision. So I will first tell you, clear your 2 points, then I will go ahead. First, is the area, what is the exact definition? It is an island of vision. It is the island of vision in a sea of darkness. It's an island of vision in a sea of darkness. That's what is visual field. Number second, I want to clear your other thing, is that eye is a bow. It's a bow like this. You understand? So superior, the retina as such. What is retina? It's a prolongation of brain. So what is the bow shape? Like this. So this temporal, suppose right eye. Temporal sees nasal. Temporal retina sees nasal. Nasal retina sees temporal. Superior sees inferior. And inferior sees superior. It should be clear to you. You understand? So if there is some problem with the temporal retina, then nasal half of the field will be involved. If there is some problem with the superior retina, inferior field will be involved. If there is some problem with the nasal half of the retina, it will be the temporal field will be involved. If this thing is clear to you, I think the chapter will be easy for you. Any doubt, anyone? I will repeat it again once again. Eye is a bow. So we have temporal retina, we have superior retina, and the inferior retina, and the nasal retina. So the visual field affected is corresponding to the area of retina. Suppose temporal field, if temporal retina is involved, then we will have nasal field involved. If the nasal retina is involved, we will have temporal field involved. Is it clear? Okay. So this is the visual pathway you are seeing. So we have first the optic nerve head. Is the focus is the optic nerve head, which is in the retina. Which is in the retina. Retina. What are the cells in the retina? I told you. First order neurons are what? Bipolar cells. Bipolar cells relate in the ganglion cells. They are the second order neurons. Then ganglion cells form the axons. They form the what's called NFL, nerve fiber layer. That's called nerve fiber layer. That goes into optic nerve head. So the formation of optic nerve starts from here. Okay. Then next slide. Then this is the optic nerve head. I will tell you briefly about this structure. Optic nerve, it is normally, if we see on the eye side, it's 1.5 mm. How much? 1.5 mm only. And the surface nerve, what we see on the ophthalmoscope, that is the surface nerve head. That contains of axons. And as it goes down, then we have some astrocytes or astroglial tissue. What's the connective tissue mixed with it? That area is called prelaminar. That's called prelaminar. So surface nerve, then the prelaminar, then it passes to the sclera. Through some penetrations. Those are called lamina tuberosa. That's called lamina tuberosa. So that is the lamina tuberosa. Once it comes out of the lamina tuberosa, then the fourth part is the retrolaminar part. That is the retrolaminar part. But in the retrolaminar part, there is the thickness of the nerve is double. It's 3 mm. How much? 3 mm. Why? Because once it comes out of the eye, yes, because once it comes out of the eye, the myelin sheath is formed by oligodendrocytes. The myelin sheath is formed and this thickness becomes double. So it is 3 mm. And it is in contrast to the body also, where the myelin sheath is formed by the Schwann cells. You understand? In the body, the myelin sheath is produced by the Schwann cells, but in the eye, it is produced by the oligodendrocytes. So this was the optic nerve head. Okay. Next. So these are some structures of the eye. We will be discussing them. This is the optic chiasm there at the second. Once the crossing occurs, first is the optic nerve stump, then there is chiasm, then there is the optic tracts. Behind that or below that is the mammillary processes, or what we call the pituitary gland. Okay. So suppose I will tell you, this is the stump, this is the crossing, isn't it? These are the optic tracts. Below is the pituitary gland. Or pituitary fossa. Next. So, optic chiasm. Before we go to the optic chiasm, I will just tell you about the course of the optic nerve. So we started from the eye as the optic nerve head. The portions or the layers of that I have told you already. Now once it comes out of the eye, it has a redundant course in the orbit, wavy course. It is a wavy course. And the distance from the back of the eye to the orbital apex, while it goes into the cranial cavity, the length of the optic nerve is around 30 mm. How much? 30 mm. But the distance between back of the eye and the orbital apex, that must be around 20-22 mm. How much? 20 to 22 mm or less than that. So there is excess of the optic nerve. Why? Because if it gets stretched, it will not be damaged. Nature has created that. So it is a wavy course, and it is around 30 mm from the back of the orbit up to orbital apex. Then, as it passes through the orbital foramen, where is the orbital foramen? It is the lesser wing of the syphenoid. It is the lesser wing of the syphenoid. Then it goes into the cranial cavity and is called the intracanaliculated part. It's intracanaliculated part. The intracanaliculated part is also around 10 mm. 6 to 9 mm or around 10 mm. Some say more, 12 and 12 like that. So then after it goes from the bony canal, it enters into what? It enters into cranial cavity. So there is now the intracranial part. That is the intracranial part. So from intracranial part it goes through the cranial cavity and reaches the optic chiasm. The distance of the length of the intracranial part is also around 10 mm. How much? 10 mm. So total you can remember, total it is around 47 to 50 mm. How much? 47 to 50 mm. So 1 mm you can remember in the eye. 1 mm you can remember in the eye. 30 mm in the orbit. 30 mm in the orbit. Around 9 to 10 mm intracranial. Okay? Then 10 mm in the intracranial. So these are the 4 parts of the optic nerve. Okay. Then it enters into the optic chiasm. What is optic chiasm? Okay. So once what happens? The nasal fibers cross these. Nasal fibers, retina is formed of 2 layers of fibers. One is nasal fibers, other are temporal fibers. So nasal fibers cross at that point. So right becomes left, left becomes right. So that is the optic chiasm. It is in the floor of the third ventricle. It is in the floor of the. It is around 5 to 10 mm above the diaphragma cella and hypophysis cerebri. It's around 12 mm wide, 8 mm in the AP, anterior posterior, and 4 mm thick. So important relations. Superiorly, it has a floor of the third ventricle. Okay? Superiorly, it is a floor of the third ventricle. Then, inferiorly, it has the pituitary stalk, or it has the hypothalamus. Okay? Or it has the sella dorsum, or clinoid processes, anterior clinoid processes, or cavernous sides. What does it mean? That means simply the pituitary gland is at its floor. Okay? So, niche pituitary fossa hai, and superior to that is the chiasm. Superior to that is the chiasm. And above that, above the chiasm is floor of the third ventricle. Okay? Laterally, what happens laterally? Laterally is the internal carotid artery, extracavernous part. Extracavernous part. Then, one more important thing is pituitary gland is in the pituitary fossa. It's in the pituitary fossa. And it has anterior clinoid process and posterior clinoid process. Okay? What we see on the X-ray. So, anterior clinoid process and posterior clinoid process. In between is the fossa, in which lies the pituitary gland. Next. So, this is a relationship. So, anterior to the chiasm is the anterior communicating artery. Is the anterior communicating artery or anterior cerebral artery. Because once the two anterior cerebral artery go, they form an anterior communicating artery. That's in front of the chiasm. That's in front of the chiasm. Inferiorly, I told you there is optic chiasm, and it forms also a part posteriorly also, slightly. Yeah? because it is inferior, but it goes slightly posterior also. Then laterally I told that there is extra cavernous internal carotid artery, and superiorly I told there is a third ventricle. Next. So now this is, you go ahead, then you will come back on this. No? Go ahead. So I wanted to tell you about the arrangements of the nerve fibers of the retina. First we will start with the retina. How is the arrangement of the nerve fibers of the retina? The nasal fibers, they directly go to the optic disc. They directly go to the optic disc for part of the optic nerve. The macular fibers also go directly to the optic disc, just in a small arch. That's called papillomacular bundle. That's called papillomacular bundle. The temporal retina behaves differently. It does not behave like the nasal fibers. It forms arcs over the papillomacular bundle. Okay? Superior arch and inferior arch. And in between there is a horizontal raphe. There is a demarcation. There is a what is not found in the nasal retina. So this horizontal raphe is only in the temporal retina. Okay? So nasally the fibers go directly to the optic disc. The macular fibers go into a papillomacular bundle directly, and the temporal retinal fibers, they go above the papillomacular bundle superiorly and inferior to the papillomacular bundle inferiorly. Okay? Next. Go back. Okay, go back. Back. आगे जाओ आगे go ahead. Forward. आगे okay, here. So once in the optic nerve, it goes into the optic. Once these fibers they form the optic nerve, the arrangement of fibers is like this. This is just behind the eyeball. The upper nasal fibers are on this side, lower nasal fibers are on this side, upper temporal are this side, and lower temporal are this side. The macular fibers are arranged temporal. They are arranged temporal. Just once the optic nerve comes out of the eyeball. Once it goes towards the chiasm, just before the chiasm, the macular fibers become central. Now you can see, macular fibers have become central. The rest almost same, upper nasal, lower nasal, upper temporal, lower temporal. So the macular fibers from the temporal, they become the central. Okay? Till the optic chiasm. Oh. Now see here what happens. Now see this diagram. Now they enter into optic chiasm. What happens to the optic chiasm? Optic chiasm, the nasal fibers, they cross. Nasal fibers, temporal fibers, they don't cross. Okay? Temporal fibers, they don't cross. There is two types of nasal fibers. There are two types of inferior nasal fibers and superior nasal fibers. Did you understand? Inferior nasal fibers and superior nasal fibers. The inferior nasal fibers, they form an arch. Suppose these are the inferior nasal fibers. They form an arch. They go into this optic nerve. Okay. Once they go into optic, then they come back. Suppose something obstructs it here. Suppose it's a right eye. The right eye will become blind. But if it obstructs here, so one thing is right eye will become blind, and these infranasal fibers of the other eye will also be affected. This is the clinical significance. Okay, so you have to remember The upper nasal fibers are high and posterior. Okay? They cross differently. They cross posterior. Suppose they are upper nasal fibers, they cross like this. They don't go anterior. But the lower nasal fibers, they go anterior. So they will be affected if there is some region here. Okay? So the lower nasal fibers go in front. They cross in front. And upper nasal fibers, they go behind. They go behind. So after crossing the optic chiasm, it becomes the optic tract. It becomes the optic tract. So if we see the right optic tract, it is temporal fibers of the right eye and the nasal fibers of the left eye. Did you understand this? Same is the case in the left eye. If the left optic tract, it is the temporal fibers of the left eye and nasal fibers of the right eye. Next. This I told you, these are also told you. So the optic tract, the fibers change now, their orientation. Okay? So macular fibers become dorsal lateral. They become lateral again. They don't remain in the center. So they become lateral. And the medial is the upper retinal fibers, upper temporal and upper nasal both. So they become medial, and the lower retinal fibers, lower temporal and lower nasal and inferior half becomes lateral. Superior half becomes medial and inferior half becomes lateral in the optic tract. Okay? So this is the diagram which shows how the optic nerve, from the optic nerve head, then the nasal fibers cross in the optic chiasm, then they form the optic tract, then they form the optic tract, then they relay in the lateral geniculate body. Once in the lateral, then they go into the optic radiation, then they go to the occipital cortex. Next. Lateral geniculate body. Back. So this is the lateral geniculate body. So optic tracts relay in the lateral geniculate body. So lateral geniculate body, it has 6 layers. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And it has 2 horns, medial horn and lateral horn. It has medial horn and lateral horn. So in that diagram you can see the medial horn, this is the upper retina. This in this diagram, lower diagram. The medial horn is upper retinal fibers and the lateral horn has the lower retinal fibers. And the macula is represented posterior part of it, posterior 2/3 of the lateral geniculate body. This one point you have to understand. So upper retina is in one horn and lower retina is in the lateral horn. And the posterior part forms the macular fibers. The layers it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 2, 3 and 5. 2, 3 and 5. 235. The uncrossed fibers. The uncrossed fibers go. That is which fibers? Temporal fibers. So 2, 3, 5, the temporal fibers go. And the rest of the 3 layers, that is 1, 4 and 6, they go crossed fibers. Okay? 2, 3, 5, the uncrossed. 2, 3, 5, uncrossed fibers go. And 1, 4, 6, the crossed fibers go. Next. So one more important thing is, before the optic tract enters into lateral geniculate body, before the optic tract enters into lateral geniculate body, it gives a fluid to the third nerve nucleus. So any lesion of the lateral geniculate body or above, the pupillary reflexes are secure. Did you understand that? So pupillary reflexes are not affected by the lateral geniculate body or above that, because the stimulus for pupillary reaction is given before the lateral geniculate body. The optic nerve gives a twig to the third nerve or aringalis nucleus. Okay. Next. So the lateral geniculate body has two types of cells, macrocellular and parvocellular. You will read about them next. Then this is the optic radiation. These are optic radiation. Once it goes from the lateral geniculate body, now it goes to the optic radiation. So optic radiation, you have to remember two things. There are two loops. There are two loops of fibers. That's very important clinically. But here you can remember the central portion transmits macular fibers. Central portion transmits macular portion. Upper is upper retina and lower is lower retina. Okay? Upper is upper retina and lower is lower retina. In between the central portion transmits the macular fibers. Next. Back जाओ. Back. आगे front जाओ front. Okay. और आगे. हाँ. Now the optic radiation. Show me the optic radiation first. No, diagram. Next diagram, fiber diagram.
Fiber diagram. नहीं है सर आगे.
Okay, you go ahead. आगे जाओ. And back जाओ, back.
ये back है.
आगे.
ये
forward. वही देखो. हाँ yes. So there are two types of fibers from the lateral geniculate body to the occipital cortex. There are two types of fibers. One set of fibers, they represent the lower retina. That goes into the temporal lobe. That is called Meier's loop. That's called Meier's loop. That comes anteriorly and inferiorly. Into the temporal lobe. Then that goes to what? To the occipital cortex. So they represent the lower nasal fibers. So then one more of group of radiation, they go straight away posterior and above. They represent the upper nasal fibers. That's the occipital part of the radiation. This is the temporal, or what I call Meier's loop. So suppose the Meier's loop will be affected by something. They will involve the lower nasal fibers and field will be upper. And if the occipital radiation will be involved, they will affect the upper nasal fibers. The field will be lower. You understand? So that I will explain. That's why I am telling the Meier's loop, the temporal loop of radiation or the fibers affects the lower nasal. And the occipital or direct or posterior group of fibers, they represent the upper nasal fibers. Then after it goes from the optic radiation, where it enters? It enters into the occipital cortex. So So in the occipital cortex, which is the area of the vision? Area 70. Broca was area 70. And what is the fissure? That's called the calcarine fissure. That's called the calcarine fissure. So calcarine fissure, you have again the same occipital zero. The calcarine fissure, that's on the medial aspect. That's on the medial aspect of the occipital lobe. Then it has the upper macular, the lower macular, then the upper nasal, upper retina and lower retina. Upper retina and the lower retina. So you can understand here. This is the upper retina above, okay? Then there is the lower retina below, okay? In between is the macula. In between is the macula. And macula is represented by the tip of the occipital. Okay? Suppose there is some trauma behind. It can cause a macular injury. Suppose somebody falls on occipital like this. Okay? So it can cause a macula. So the macula is represented by the tip of the occipital lobe. At the upper part of the calcarine fissure, you have the upper retina, and lower part of the calcarine fissure or the occipital cortex is the lower retina. Then we have the visual aspiration area, area 18 or area 19. So the occipital cortex also relates into that, into those areas, which are called visual aspiration area. What is the verb? Form, formation, form, image form, or orientation, integration of image, the interpretation of image, that is the aspiration areas, what they do. Next. So these are the secondary visual areas. Even the motion of the objects or even the color analysis is done by them. Next. Okay, next. So this is very important for you. What we have read till now, you have to now apply. You have to now apply. Okay? Suppose this is the optic nerve. This is the optic nerve. Then is the optic chiasm. Then is the optic tract, that is the lateral geniculate body. Then is the optic radiation, which I have told you 2 sets. Then is the optic radiation, again that's the 2 sets. Then is the occiput. Then is the occiput. So, if you have understood till now, it will be easy. If you have not understood, if you have any confusion somewhere, then things may be difficult to understand. So, if I go here, you are seeing this here the band. This is the temporal band, Mayer's rule. From the lateral geniculate body, what I told, lower nasal fibers. Lower nasal fibers. This is the Mayer's rule. This is the Mayer's rule. You have to understand. So, now, what is homonymous and what is heteronymous? Can you understand this problem? What's homonymous? Huh? Same visual. Same means what? If right is temporal, left is nasal. Okay? Right temporal, left nasal. This is homonymous. This is homonymous. If it is bitemporal, temporal both, that will be heteronymous. Right? So homonymous means same. Suppose this field, this half field of right hand, this half field of left hand, that is temporal half of the right hand, nasal half of the left hand, is homonymous. Okay? Heteronymous is opposite. Temporal of this, temporal of this. Okay? So that will be heteronymous. What is congruous and incongruous? What is congruous and incongruous? Congruous means same. Congruous means same field loss in both. Amount of field loss. Amount of field loss. Incongruous means More in one eye, less in the other eye. Non-uniform. Suppose in some there is half, in other there is two-thirds of the half. You understand? That will be incongruous. So here we start with the lesion. We start with the lesion here, number 1. Okay? If this is lesion here, what will happen? Right optic nerve is transected. So right eye will become blind. Okay? Left eye will be normal. Left eye will be normal. But here the right pupil reflex will be also absent. Because the optic nerve is damaged. Okay? Because for the pupil reflex, the afferent is the optic nerve. Okay? So here the right eye will become blind and the left eye will be normal. So if somebody asks you this thing, so you should be able to tell this. Then the second is the what I told you here. That's not mentioned here, but you can add that here. You understand? Here again, the right eye will become blind. Right eye will be blind. But there will be part of the left eye also. That will be part of the left eye also. Which fibers? I told you infranasal fibers. They will form a superior. They will form a superior temporal quadrant. They will form that's called a junctional scotoma also. That's called junctional scotoma. So I will draw this. It's not written here. There will be 10 or 8. Something here I can write. Yes. So if this is the eye and this is the optic nerve, one eye and the other eye, and this is the optic nerve. This goes like this, then it forms the optic chiasm like this. So because of these inferior fibers, they cross like this. Okay? So if there is a lesion here somewhere, so it will cause right eye will become blind. Okay? Right eye will become blind. So left eye, there will be a scotoma that will be in the supratemporal. Supratemporal because it is infranasal. It's infranasal, that will be supratemporal. Okay? And border, what's called the junctional scotoma. That's called the junctional scotoma. Normally it will not be visible. It will not be visible. His left eye vision will be normal. But once we do field analysis or we do his perimetry, it will come to the limelight. So this is important of that loop. That loop is called what? Von Willebrand loop. Von Willebrand loop. That represents the inferior nasal fibers. Now the third is the optic chiasm. That will go. Optic chiasm. What will happen? The nasal fibers of both eyes will be affected. So it will cause temporal hemianopia. It's called temporal hemianopia. So there will be bitemporal hemianopia. You understand? So bitemporal hemianopia. So there is 2 points here. How many? 2 points you have to understand. One is that there are different types of optic chiasm. Some optic chiasm, one is normal. One is normal. Normal means what? What is above the optic. What's above the pituitary fossa? What is above the pituitary fossa? That's normal. That is normal. Other is called prefix. What other is called prefix? Prefix means the optic chiasm is in front of the pituitary fossa. Optic chiasm is in front of the pituitary fossa. If there is some region in the pituitary which will press, it will press the optic tracts. It will push the optic tracts with that. So regions will be different. Okay? One is post-fixed. One is post-fixed. That means the optic chiasm is behind the pituitary. Okay? Normally 90% it is staying normal, above the pituitary gland. But in some it is prefixed in front, and if it is in front it will press the optic tract. If it will be behind, what's called post-fixed, the optic nerve will be pressed. Okay? Nerve will be pressed. So you have to understand that. Other thing is, there are, suppose something is, this is the optic chiasm. Suppose this is the optic chiasm. Something is pressing from below, like a pituitary gland tumor or something. So it will affect what? It will affect the temporal region, nasal fibers. But which nasal fibers? Inferior nasal fibers. It will affect the inferior nasal fibers. If something from below, it will affect the inferior nasal fibers. And that will reflect in what? Once the inferior nasal fibers are affected, it will be supratemporal. Okay? So half of regions will recover. And there is one more, that's called craniopharyngioma. That's called craniopharyngioma. That's a childhood tumor. That comes from above. That comes from the superior. That comes from the superior. So that affects the superior fibers. That affects the superior fibers. So that will affect the inferior infratemporal region. Okay? So by and large, if there is a pituitary mass and it presses on the chiasm, it will cause a bitemporal heminopia. Okay? So now if there is a lesion superior to that in the optic tract, what will happen? What will happen? If there is a lesion here also, here. So there will be sort of this homonymous heminopia. Because in the optic tract, what's there? Because there are temporal fibers from the right eye, so its nasal field will be affected. Okay? Then we have the nasal fibers of the opposite eye, its temporal field will be affected. Okay? So, because there are temporal fibers in the optic tract, here I need to say. So there will be temporal fibers, the nasal half of the retina will be affected. Sorry, nasal half of the fields will be affected, or the vision will be affected. And there are nasal fibers of the left eye, the temporal field will be affected. This is called homonymous heminopia. Homonymous heminopia. So above the chiasm, there is homonymous. Okay? Above the optic chiasm, there is homonymous. That means temporal of one, nasal of other. Okay? Suppose in this case, the right eye is the nasal field and left eye is the temporal field. Okay? Temporal half of the field. Then we go to the lateral geniculate body. Lateral geniculate body. दूसरा था ना वो फील्ड का, वो कहाँ रखा आपने?
कौन सा?
Yes. Next. हाँ. Lateral geniculate body, again there is same what the homonymous type of heminopia. but it is incongruous. It's not similar. It is not similar. Then next. Then we reach to the optic radiation. Then we reach to this optic radiation. In total, I told you there are two types of fibers. One go to the temporal lobe, other go directly to the occipital cortex. What goes to the temporal lobe? If that is affected, then because they represent the infranasal, so the superior quadrant tenopia will happen. Superior temporal quadrant, superior temporal quadrant tenopia. Okay. What is this called? Pi in the skull. That's called pi in the skull. So same if the occipital direct radiation will be affected. That represents what? That represents the upper nasal fibers, and that will affect the inferior quadrant of the retina, temporal retina, and that is called pi on the floor. That's called pi. That's what I wanted to explain at that time. Nasal fibers, lower nasal fibers, they go to the Mears lobe, temporal. If they will be affected, they will affect called the pi on the skull, because the upper field will be affected, upper temporal field. The direct radiation, they represent the superior nasal fibers, so the lower temporal field will be affected. Lower quadrant of the temporal field will be affected. What is called pi on the floor. Next. So, what's your opinion about this graph? So there is a quadrant in this visual field which is the upper temporal. What is the upper temporal on this side, and which has been affected, because this area is sort of a, you can say it can happen in a pituitary tumor, or you can say it's a pi on the sky type lesion. Okay, so the upper temporal part of the visual field is here affected. And since again you say, एक मिनट बेटा वो आप फीट रखो एक मिनट. Okay, next. Now we come to the blood supply. Blood supply of the visual pathway is from the carotid and the vertebrae. From the carotid is the ophthalmic artery. It is a small branch of internal carotid artery, or the posterior communicating artery, or anterior cerebral artery, or even from the vertebral system, the posterior cerebral artery supplies the entire visual pathway. Next. So here in this diagram, what you are seeing, there is an enlargement of the pituitary gland here. Somewhere in this area, there is an enlargement of the pituitary gland. Okay? Next. Next. Diagram एक दो field और
हैंग हो रहा सर ये हैंग.
What do you think about this? This is MRI. This is MRI of the brain. What is there? What? Yes. What is the lesion there? And which occipital lobe? Right or left? It's left. Because what is right is actually left. What is left is actually right. It's reverse. So there is a region which there is a bright signal. There is a bright signal in the left occipital cortex. This is probably infarction. There is an infarction of the brain, and which is caused a sort of a homogeneous hemiplegia type of. But remember, in occipital lobe injuries or even in optic radiation, macula is spared. Macula is spared. Macula escapes. Only if the tip of the occipit gets damaged, the macula gets affected. Next. So what do you think about this? So again here there are temporal. This is the temporal, okay, and this is the temporal field affected here. This is the temporal field affected in the two eyes, right supratemporal and left supratemporal, and this is the pituitary mass here, okay. What is compressing the optic chiasm, and it can be seen here also. This is the pituitary mass which is pressing the chiasm and creating a bitemporal type of hemiplegia. Initially it begins upper temporal, then it comes down, okay, it becomes total temporal, okay. So initially it can be half temporal also, or quadrant ectopia type, then it can become full temporal. So treatment, well, investigations, if somebody asks you, X-ray is a basic investigation. You can see the pituitary fossa, you can see the clinoid processes, or you can see the, what happens in X-ray on the clinoid process? There is erosion. There is erosion once there is a pituitary mass. And then you can do a CT. What will CT show? CT will show what? CT is very important in fractures. Okay? Suppose there is a base optical fracture. Base optical fracture, that will be picked up by CT. Okay? Then MRI is for soft tissue, for the brain, like a pituitary mass, like infarction, you understand? Like a hemorrhage, like a tumor, that will be shown by MRI. CT is good for the bony region, and MRI is good for the soft tissue. Suppose a treatment, if somebody asks me about treatment of visual pathway defects, suppose it is a pituitary tumor, if it is lactating, then you can give bromocriptine. Okay? Then if there is a surgical approach to the pituitary tumor. What is the most recent surgical approach? Basal, syphnoidal, through the nose, transsyphnoidal debulking. And there is one more, the radiotherapy can be given also. Tumors, you know that tumors you can do debulking by neurosurgical people, then radiotherapy, then chemotherapy. So many option treatments are available. Then if you have suppose some vascular leakage or vascular thrombosis, then there is a role of angiography. Then there is a role of angiography or angiographically thrombus removal. Or if there is an aneurysm somewhere which has leaked, which is called a compression, you can do a clipping of the aneurysm. So these are the treatment modalities. Any question?
अटेंडेंस रोल नंबर बोल दो वहीं से बोल दो